Christmas stockings are one of the fastest and easiest sewing projects to make, so I'm going to show you how I do it. First, you're going to cut your fabric. I do have the stocking pattern linked for free in my bio. You are going to do 2 pieces of your outer fabric, but if you have a pattern that is directional, you're going to want to make sure you mirror this on the other side when you're cutting it out. And then we're also going to do 2 pieces of lining fabric and 2 pieces of batting with this main stocking piece. For our cuff, we're going to cut 2 pieces of fabric for our scalloped piece. My outer fabric is not quite tall enough to accommodate the full stocking length, so I'm just gonna sew a different type of fabric up at the top here so I can get the entire length, and it's gonna be covered by the cuff. This won't be a problem for you if you're using a bigger piece of fabric, but I had to have this. This is Print Fresh. I am upcycling a tote bag with this Christmas holiday chicken pattern. When you're cutting your batting, I definitely recommend using low loft batting. The polyfill, anything that's medium or high loft is just gonna be a little bit too puffy for the look that I prefer. All right, now we're going to quilt our outer fabric onto our batting pieces. You can either actually do quilt lines all throughout, but I don't prefer that look, so I'm just gonna do a 1/4 inch seam allowance around the edge of the batting and my outer fabric lined up. Now we're gonna line up our 2 outer pieces of stocking and batting, right sides touching, and we're gonna sew them together along this bottom edge. We're gonna leave the top open. Once you've sewn that together on the curved edges, I do like to clip into the seam allowance just a little bit so that I can get a flat lay. Just make sure you don't cut the seam that you sewed, and I like to do a few on the toe as well. And we'll flip this inside out and press the seams. Once you have this pressed, we're gonna set it aside for now. We're gonna do the exact same thing and sew around this edge and leave the top open. We're also gonna leave about a 2 or 3 inch gap here at the bottom so that we're able to pull the entire stocking through in a future step. Once we have our lining sewn together, we're gonna set it aside and we're gonna move on to creating our cuff. We're gonna line up our 2 scalloped edge pieces and we're just gonna sew this bottom scalloped edge. When you are pivoting here on these corners, just make sure to pick your needle up so you get a nice sharp edge. Once you have your 2 scalloped cuff pieces sewn together, clip in between each divot here so we can get a nice good press when we flip this inside out. Once you have your scalloped cuff flipped inside out and pressed, we're gonna line it up with the top of an outer fabric stocking, and we're just gonna measure to see how big we want our seam allowance. We're gonna want this to be an exact fit. It looks like I will get by with just a 1/4 inch seam allowance here, but make sure you check so you can get bigger or smaller you need to get around the body of your stocking. All right, I have my cuff sewn together and I'm going to flip this inside out so that the seam is hidden. And I'm gonna go ahead and insert it over the top of my outer fabric. All right, now your stocking is going to look like this. What we're gonna do is we are going to insert the outer stocking and cuff into the lining and line up the top edges of all of these layers. And just adjust so that the top of the layers are all lined up, and I do like to match up the seams. Once you have everything lined up, we are gonna take, you can use anything. I have just this twill tape, but you can use yarn, you can use bias tape, anything that you want to be your loop to hang your stocking. We're gonna have this face down, so the 2 ends are gonna be lined up with all these raw edges here at the top. And we're gonna just pin it at this back edge and we'll catch that in the seam when we sew around the top. Once you have everything pinned, you are going to sew all of the layers, the outer stocking, the cuff layer, the lining layer, as well as your loop here on the seam, all the way around this top edge. I do about a 1/2 inch seam allowance just to make sure I'm catching all the layers of fabric. Once you have everything at the top sewn, we're gonna find that hole that we left in our lining and we're gonna pull the entire thing through. All right, once we have everything pulled through, we're gonna go ahead and top stitch to close up the hole we left in the lining. Once you have the hole in the lining sewn up, your stocking is gonna look like this, one big long tube. We are going to just open this up and tuck the lining into the main body of the stocking. Then we're gonna press the top here. We're gonna adjust until this is looking how we like it, and then we will top stitch. All right, I'm done top stitching, so my stocking is complete. Please tag me if you end up making these. I would love to see what you create.